திருச்சிற்றம்பலம். கண்ணப்ப நாயனார் புராணம்.
கண்ணப்பன் ஒப்பதோர் அன்பின்மை கண்டபின் என்னப்பன் என் ஒப்பில் என்னையும் ஆட்கொண்டு அருளி வண்ணப் பணித்து என்னை வா என்ற வான்கருணை சுண்ணப் பொன்னீற்றற்கே சென்றூதாய் கோத்தும்பி
விண்ணப்பனாய குழுமித்தேவ வேட்கை மிகும் கண்ணப்பராய திருக்காலத்திலேத்துவர் போன்று எண்ணறியாரேனை எடுத்தறியாரேனும் மனக்கண்ணிரையான் இந்த சிவக்காதலால் தூண்டப் பெற்று உண்மையாய்த் தம்மை அடிக்கொப்படைத்த நல்லடியார்க்கு என்மையாய்க் கைநெல்லியின் கனியாவானே.
Saint Manikavachagar says in the fourth song of Tirukkothumbi in Tiruvachagam as follows: Kannapa Nayanar is in the highest stage of love for the Lord, whereas I am in the beginning stage. Still my Lord and Father Shiva accepted and took over me by his grace and made me one of high moral value. O King of Tumbi, dragonfly, do go to the Lord and sing the praise of the one who smears the finely powdered basmam all over his body. A true devotee never seeks anything for himself. Instead, he offers to the Lord whatever he has. Kannapa Nayanar is the ever-shining example of this love. Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi and his beloved devotee, the poet saint Muruganar, have said in Ramana Puranam of Sri Ramana Sannidhi Murai that even though Kannapa Nayanar was not learned and a hunter belonging to a tribal community, was able to obtain the grace of the Lord of Kalahasti by his unique and sincere love for the Lord and his complete surrender to Shiva. Let us now look into the story of a devotee belonging to the ruthless jungle tribe who offered the forbidden animal flesh as food and his eye as gift to the Lord and attained salvation. The river Swarnamukhi flowed by Kanchipuram, the celebrated Shaivite center of great eminence. There was an elephant-shaped mount on its bank called Venugiri. Near this place is Udupur, the birthplace of Kannapa Nayanar, who demonstrated that those who cultivate devotion to Shiva, who is the son of darkness of misery, have no fear in the world, and also proved that compared to pure devotion, caste, scholarship, sacrifices, penance, ceremonious worships, pilgrimage, etc. are not as efficacious.
வானவர்கள் தானவர்கள் பாதைபட வந்ததொரு மாகடல் விடம் வானவர்கள் தானவர்கள் பாதைபட வந்ததொரு மாகடல் விடம் மாகடல் விடம் மாகடல் விடம் சந்தமாரகிலோடு சாதித்தே தம்மரம் குந்துமா முகலியில் கரையினில் உமையோடும் மந்தமார் பொழில் வளர் மல்குவன் காலத்தி எந்தையார் இணையடி என் மனத்து உள்ளவே எந்தையார் இணையடி என் மனத்து உள்ளவே.
The chieftain of the main camp, Godapuram, was Naga and his wife was Datta. As they were issueless for a long time, they offered worship to their lord Subramanya. A celestial voice then announced that a boy will be born to them who will excel even Narayana in fame by offering his eye to the Lord. While Narayana offered one eye to Shiva at Thirumalpur and Trivizhimalai, this boy would offer both. The boy was born in due course and was named Dhira or Tinnan. Dhira grew up and started learning from an expert teacher the crafts of jungle, hunting, warfare, sports and administration. In a short time, he grew up to everyone's expectation and even excelled that. Once, the residents of the southern quarters of Venugiri approached Naga, their chief, and complained about attacks from man-eaters and sought immediate intervention. Dhira was asked by his father to lead the campaign. Once the big animals were subdued, a wild boar caught Dhira's fancy and he went chasing it. After much pursuing, the wild boar could not run further and Dhira tore it into pieces with his sword. His friends Gada and Nanu praised him for the extraordinary valor shown by him. Completely exhausted by now, they decided to cook and eat the boar. Dhira and Nanu went uphill to freshen up and saw river Swarnamukhi and took a plunge. The very sight of the place refreshed Dhira and his mind soared to lofty heights. Soon they were on their way to climb the hill. A rugged pathway went up the steep slope of the hill, filled with shiny pearls scattered from bamboo shoots growing on the sides. As they reached the pinnacle, dark clouds kissed them a welcome. Suddenly, Dhira saw an eminent Shivalingam facing west, situated under a bilva tree loaded with fruit. By its very hallowed sight, Dhira's sins accumulated over countless lives vanished and he turned a new leaf. A serene feeling that allowed no description possessed him. The lingam was famed as Sri Kalahattishwara, owing the name to a spider, an elephant and a snake, which were blessed by the Lord of Yore. Dhira, as if pulled by a great force, ran up to the lingam and clasped it with his broad shoulders. At that instant, his filial bond with the Lord, spreading over innumerable lives, reflected in his pure mind. Seeing the flowers and leaves on the lingam, he asked Nanu about it, and Nanu said that a Brahmin priest visits there each day and offers them to the Lord. Dhira felt that he should offer food to the Lord too. He went down to the banks of river Swarnamukhi, where Gada was cooking the boar. Dhira checked the quality and wanted to take it up the hill. Gada and Nanu could not persuade Dhira to go home with them, and they decided to go home and inform his parents and bring them there. Dhira then filled his mouth with water from the river Swarnamukhi, his hairs with flowers, and the cooked boar in his hands, and walked back quickly to Kalhastiswara. Then he cleared all the old flowers on the lingam with his foot, with the footwear on, poured the water from his mouth on the lingam in the name of Abhisheka, unloaded the flowers from his hairs, and placed the meat on the lingam and bade the Lord to eat. He stayed there all night to protect his Lord. The next morning, he went down to fetch food. After Dhira left the place in the morning, Shivakosa, the customary priest, arrived at the Lord's presence and to undertake his daily ceremonial worship. And what an obnoxious sight it was for him. Bones and pieces of flesh were scattered everywhere on and around the deity. Once the fit of fury subsided, he set to clean the lingam and the premises. He took bath and bathed the lingam according to the rites of purification, to the chanting of appropriate mantras. Thus completing the Punyavachanam, he accomplished the daily worship of the Lord with flowers and other ingredients and returned home. This continued for the next 4 days, and on the 5th day, Shivakosa lamented to the Lord asking him who was doing all this harm to him. The compassionate Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "The hunter who is a novice in our love fold defies all standards of devotion. The purity of his adoration is matchless, which alone matters to us. I must warn you, those who hate him reap my wrath. Should you need to see the depth of his fondness for us, stay behind the bush and watch the proceedings tomorrow." The next day, Dhira came, as usual, with his hunting equipments on one shoulder, floral bunch in his locks, and flesh in his hand, and walked anxiously towards the lingam. Gently emptying the contents of his mouth, he washed the lingam and sprinkled the flowers over it. Then, offering the juicy pieces of roasted flesh in the lotus leaf, then he came close to the Lord and saw tears of blood trickling from his eye. Dhira, shocked at this ghastly sight, fell down unconscious. After a while, he regained his senses and, wailing aloud, thought of an immediate remedy. Then, as if something flashed in his mind, he sped into the nearby bushes and returned with twigs of herbs. He applied the juice on the sore eye. The herb, a proven panacea, proved ineffective in the case of the Lord. At last, he recollected an old adage, "An eye for an eye," and adapted it to the present situation, only in a different way. Without a second thought, he removed his left eye with the sharp edge of his arrow, not even uttering a moan, and fixed it on the troubled eyes of the lingam. Lo and behold, the bleeding stopped. It worked. Dhira could not believe his eyes. Relieved at this, he resumed to feed the Lord. But now the other eye started oozing blood. Dhira was shocked and bemoaned with grief, but soon recovered and reasoned. The eye needs to be healed at once. No problem, the remedy was at hand. He attempted to remove his other eye when it occurred to him that without the second eye he would not be able to locate the Lord's sore eye. As he reasoned thus, he hit upon an idea. He placed his toe just below the troubled eye and was about to dig out the remaining eye. Then the Lord, who now appeared in place of the lingam, said, "Stop, Kannapa," and held his hand tight. Soon, Dhira saw himself in the tight lock of the Lord's arm. His whole frame trembled with horripilation. Dhira fell prostrate at the Lord, and as he stood, he was shining with not 2, but 3 eyes like our Lord. He was bestowed the Sarupya of Lord's form, one of the 4 types of liberation, and a permanent residence in Kailasa.
விற்றூணொன்றில்லாத நல்கூர்ந்தான் காண் வியன் கச்சி கம்பன் காண் பிச்சையல்ல விற்றூணொன்றில்லாத நல்கூர்ந்தான் காண் வியன் கச்சி கம்பன் காண் பிச்சையல்ல மற்றூணொன்றில்லாத மாததூரன் காள் மயானத்து மைந்தன் காள் மாசு ஒன்றில்ல மற்றொன்றில்லாத மாததூரன் காள் மயானத்து மைந்தன் காள் மாதொன்று இல்ல பொற்றூன்காண் மாமணினல் குன்று ஒப்பான் காள் பொய்யாது பொழிலேடும் தாங்கி நின்ற பொற்றூன்காண் மாமணினல் குன்று ஒப்பான் காள் பொய்யாது பொழிலேடும் தாங்கி நின்ற கற்றூன்காண் காளத்தி காணப்பட்டு கணநாதன் காண் அவன் என் கண்ணுடனே கற்றூன் காண்காளத்தி காணப்பட்ட கணநாதன் காண் அவன் என் செண்டாடும் விடையாய் செண்டாடும் விடையாய் சிவனேயன் செழுஞ்சுடரே செண்டாடும் வேளையாய் சிவனே என் செழுஞ்சுடரே சிவனே என் செழுஞ்சுடரே பண்டாரும் குழலாய் பண்டாரும் குழலாய் உமைபாகம் மகிழ்ந்தவனே பண்டாரும் குழலாய் உமைபாகம் மகிழ்ந்தவனே உமைபாகம் மகிழ்ந்தவனே உமைபாகம் மகிழ்ந்தவனே கண்டார் காதலிக்கும் கணநாதன் எம் காலத்திய கண்டார் காதலிக்கும் கணநாதன் எம் காலத்திய கண்டார் காதலிக்கும்.
Devotees of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharishi would be delighted to know the amount of regards Bhagavan had for Kannapa Nayanar and his bhakti. Sri T.K. Sundaresa Iyer, in his book At the Feet of Bhagavan, mentions that once, while Bhagavan was narrating the life of Kannapa Nayanar, and while he was nearing the end, the following happened. When Bhagavan came to the story of how Kannapar was plucking out his second eye to heal the second one of the Lord, and how the Shivalinga extended a hand to stop him, saying, "Stop, Kannapar!" Bhagavan's voice choked. His body perspired profusely. His hairs stood on the end. Tears gushed out of his eyes. He could hardly utter a word, and there was silence, pin-drop silence in the hall. All were dumbfounded that this great jnani could be so overpowered by emotion and ecstasy at the great hunter saint's devotion. After a while, Bhagavan quietly closed the book, dried the tears in his eyes with the end of his towel, and laid aside the book, saying, "No, I can't go on any further." Today, we are indeed blessed to recount the life of the great sage Kannapa Nayanar. Tiruchitrambalam.